So what countries in the world are going to have the best economies over the next 5 years or so? What countries would you invest in? What countries are the big investors, the biggest investors in the world investing in? Well, today we are going to answer those questions through a game that I like to call the Great Economic Draft. So I set up some agents here that will act on behalf of some of the top economists in the world who are never wrong about anything. I will also be in this draft, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be picking economies with our predictions for how well they will do in the future. And we will give stats, reasons to back all of these things up, and give you guys some ideas about why maybe you should invest in these countries or why you shouldn't. And so who are the economists that I will be competing against today in this draft? Well, they are Peter Schiff, Chamath, I can never pronounce his last name, and the iconic Jim Cramer. Now, I have typed in the draft lottery to see who gets the first pick, and what the... so why did I get screwed for the odds here? Does ChatGPT, not like me or something? So I get 15% odds for the first overall pick, and Kramer gets 35, and Chamath and Schiff get 25%? Man, what is this? Why am I getting screwed out here? What am I, the Leafs in any playoff game? Come on. Anyways, so we're going to be doing the draft here, the order, and let's see, it is... Chamath gets the first pick. I get the second pick, despite 15% odds. Peter Schiff gets the third, and Kramer gets the fourth pick. I believe the first pick is in. So, who did Chamath pick as the top country to invest in? What will be the best economy for him to invest in going into the future? And he picked India. Chamath picked India. The pick itself it's a fine pick. It's a good pick. Definitely worthy of a number one overall pick, in my opinion. Here's the reasoning. So let me break it down for you, my friends. India is not just a play on cheap labor or offshoring anymore. It's a full stack bet on modern capitalism 2.0. This is the moment where I say I was early. I'm not wrong. Demographics, it's golden. 67% of the population is under 35. Is that true? They're minting unicorns faster than the US is minting TikTok bills in Congress. Modi's government is cozying up to both the US and Russia. I hope that works out for them. Hedging their bets geopolitically like a venture capitalist at the A and C series simultaneously. Let's not ignore Apple, Foxconn, and other big boys moving their factories here post-China fallout. This is the decade where India's economy could double, and I'm buying at the entire cap table. GDP growth in 2023 for India was 7.6%? Is this true? Wow, would you look at that? 9.6%, 6.9%, and 7.6%. Wow. Okay. That's a very, very strong GDP growth rate for this country here. It's projected to stay that high for a while. FDI inflows are pretty high. All right. So that looks like a pretty good pick overall. So I'm just going to type in here. So we're going to do 5 rounds just to make sure we're going to do one pick at a time. But my pick, the second overall in this draft for a potentially great economy to invest in for the next 5 years. Drumroll, please. We are going with Indonesia. Okay, so let's go over my rationale here. So my thinking was, this is a fairly large population with 280 million people, the 4th largest country in the world. A big thing here is that it's starting to become a little bit of a manufacturing hub, but also a big thing here is that it's not China. You see, with the current uncertainty with the world going on right now, tariffing here, tariffing there, Indonesia, they're gonna get tariffed probably, but they're far enough away from China where I don't think a lot of the big firms from around the world would be scared to set up their company in Indonesia. I also have heard quite a lot of things about their EV stuff here, which is interesting that got brought up here. Again, very low debt. Just all in all, the country is in a very good fiscal place for high growth. Now, they also have some things here. Again, part of my rationale here was de-risking from China, which is really interesting. They are building a new capital city. I didn't know about that. Nusantara. Look at that. Wow, okay, it is under construction. Darn, that looks pretty cool. All right, the next pick in the draft. Let's see who Peter Schiff picks. Number 3 pick is Switzerland. For Peter Schiff, ooh. What a Peter Schiff pick there. Look, while all of you are busy gambling on tech-fueled banana republics. No! Don't roast my pick like that, bro. I'm going with the adult in the room. Switzerland, a country that actually understands sound money. fiscal discipline, and the importance of not turning your central bank into a money printer cosplay club. This is one of the few countries that still backs its currency with credibility, not the promise of more debt. While the US Fed and ECB are playing whack-a-mole with inflation and recessions, Switzerland is sitting there like, oh, you guys still do inflation? That's pretty cute. Their economy is built on real value banking, pharmaceuticals, precision manufacturing. While other countries chase GDP growth like addicts looking for their next fix, Switzerland chugs along with a budget surplus and the best chocolate in the world. I mean, it can't beat them there, eh? That's a good rationale. And just so you know, the global financial system collapses, if it does, which it will, I want to be the guy holding Swiss francs and gold bars in Zurich, not TikTok shares in Jakarta. Wow, what a pick there. Very Peter Schiff, very Austrian school of economics. Their GDP growth is 1.3%. Inflation is very low, one of the lowest in the world. They have no debt in Switzerland. Is this true? Holy jumpin' Jesus. They have no debt in Switzerland. 37% GDP. Wow, that's actually just a solid country pick, especially with some uncertainty going on within the EU right now. There's stuff going on in Germany and France that are nearby countries that are creating some destabilization. I wonder how much money is actually going to move over to Switzerland in the coming years. Now that I think about it, that's actually not a bad idea. Oh, but obviously it's the gold reserves. That's why Peter Schiff picked these guys. It's the gold. What am I even saying? Okay, so right now, India, Indonesia, Switzerland. Okay, let's go to the next pick here. Dun 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 dun. Who is Jim Cramer going with? Mexico. Ooh, I didn't even... They were actually not in my first round pick mock draft, but that's actually not a bad bet here. So let's see what Jim Cramer says. Booyah! You want growth? You want momentum? You want a country that's about to body slam China in the global supply chain? It's Mexico, baby. This is a nearshoring supernova, and Wall Street hasn't even priced it in. We're talking T-Mech, Tesla gigafactories, and chip fabs in Chihuahua? Wait, Chihuahua's not a city. Is that a city? Am I learning something here? This is the US's BFF in the supply chain wars, and as long as companies keep saying China's too risky, they're going to keep moving their operation across the Rio Grande. And let me be clear, Mexican manufacturing is like if Taiwan and Detroit had a baby, and that baby was also trained in logistics and drank espresso from birth. Inflation, it's under control. Peso, it's strong. Fiscal policy, surprisingly responsible. Ole to that, my friends. Okay, wait, 1 second here. Is Chihuahua an actual city in Mexico? Wow, it is. How many people does this have, though? There's no way. How have I not heard of this? Chihuahua has almost 1 million people in it. Wow, okay. That's why I do these games, folks. So, GDP nominal. So, they got a good GDP growth sitting at 3.2%. Let's see if they have some IMF data. We're not going to click on that because ChatGPT doesn't know what it's doing. Right here, I guess that Jimmy here is betting on stuff like the trade war and trade tariff escalation with China and so on. So, I get it. I understand it. Got to make those cars somewhere, All right, I just made some modifications here just for each one of these picks. I just want a little bit more dot jots of explanations here, but we're going to go to the next pick here. So the first pick of round 1 also goes to Cramer, if I'm not mistaken. All right, pick number 1 of the second round is Vietnam. So this is Jim Cramer. Booyah! Round 2. You think we're done cooking? We're not even at a rolling boil yet. You want the China substitute of the decade? No, I got the China substitute. Bro, I got Indonesia. What are you doing? I got this. It's all wrapped up already. But Vietnam is like China if China went to therapy and came back with lower tariffs and better Wi-Fi. Okay. This place is on fire. Samsung's there, Intel's there, Apple's practically flirting with Vietnam like it's prom night. You're looking at the apex predator of Southeast Asia when it comes to manufacturing agility. And they're backed by a commie government that figured out you need a capitalism to make communism work. It's wild, it's beautiful, it's investable. You think I'm yelling? I'm not yelling. I'm passionately broadcasting future gains. All right. So here's some of the reasonings here. This is an interesting choice. This was on my list here. They were around pick number 8 for me, I believe. But dot jot reasoning here. Manufacturing magnets. So major firms relocating from China, Apple, Intel, Samsung, fast growing electronics hub. Export superpower. Export to GDP ratio over 100%. Ooh, that's strong. Heavy trade. Wages are lower than China, but worker efficiency is rising. All right. Yeah. So again, this was a pretty this is what I wanted to see. They have high GDP growth, projected 6 to 7% range through 2030. So they're very much, it seems like a growing economy. They're on the way up. Cool, good pick. Now, who's got the next one? So far, the next pick will be, oh, it's actually for me. Okay, so my next pick in this draft, the Philippines. It's not too far, I mean, it's pretty far geographically, but relatively, you look at a map, the Philippines is not too far away from Indonesia. The pick is in. So my rationale is very similar to that of Indonesia. It's a growing economy. A lot of the manufacturing that potentially might move out of China might move to the Philippines, which is seen as a much friendlier nation to the United States. A lot of the similar reasons to Indonesia. It's a young population, a lot of investments going in. I mean, robust economic growth here. Let's see, the demographic advantage I mentioned here. Strategic geopolitical positioning. Again, it's typing in all the same reasons that I was thinking of here. Digital economy growth here is it's expanding rapidly, driven by increased internet penetration. So the Philippines is a giant country, the 12th largest population in the world, and it's just really starting to come online at scale. I think it's a good country to invest in right now. It's not even a buy low country. It's an upcoming country. It's had consistent 5 to 6 to 7% GDP growth for over 10 years now, apart from COVID. So it's a good country. Now let's see what the next pick is here. Team Schiff is on the clock. They're gonna, let me guess, like USA. No one's picking USA. Isn't that interesting? Singapore. Ooh. So let me explain something to the rest of you fiat clowns. While everyone else is chasing unicorns and deficit-funded fantasy lands, I'm going with a place that actually knows what the hell they're doing. They run budget surpluses, their taxes are low, regulations are sane, and the currency doesn't get wrecked by dumb central bank experiments. This is a city-state where discipline, meritocracy, and productivity are still actual values, not hashtags. They don't have massive raw materials or 100 million people. What they do have is brains, banks, biotech, and container ships, and they're running a tighter operation than any G7 finance ministry. And for the record, they've got gold reserves and storage vaults, so when your currencies collapse, I'll be sipping coffee with my gains intact. What is coffee? Coffee, also known as Nanyang coffee, is a traditional coffee beverage found in several Southeastern Asian nations. Interesting. So his reasons are it's the 4th largest FX center globally, massive private banking, and gold vaulting operations. Do we need to ask anymore? Schiff clearly has a strategy here. I mean, my strategy is just go after Southeast Asia right now. So his is just go after the gold countries. So the next pick belongs to Chamath. Chamath picks Brazil. I thought that was going to fall to me. No. Okay. Brazil was going to be my next pick. Chamath sipping yerba mate out of a gold straw pacing in Allbirds. Alright, here's the alpha that no one else is seeing. Brazil is the asymmetric upside no one's pricing in. This is a country that's not just resource rich, it's climate transition rich. Lithium, check. Rare earths, check. Arable land, more than half of Europe. While the West is arguing about whether ESG is woke or broke, Brazil is sitting on the literal building blocks of the green economy. If you want to talk about optionality, Brazil. The Brazil trade gives me exposure to agriculture, energy independence, and rising fintech wave. It's not 1997 anymore, folks. The macro has changed. Brazil has tighter monetary policy than most G7 nations, and their central bank was first to raise rates before it was cool. The inflation curve already tamed. The real strong. The real, sorry. That's real, right? Not the real, real. This is not your uncle's Latin America. So, a lot of things here. It looks like it has a green energy gold mine, lots of lithium, rare earth, iron ore, renewable heavy grid. I do know about its hydropower because I always look at Canada. We have a good amount of nuclear and hydropower in this country, and I always look at Brazil has just an insane amount of hydropower. Here's after 2 rounds. Here are the picks. Right now, Team Chamath with India, Brazil. Oh. You know what? My team, though, Indonesia, Philippines. Look, man, I think I got a good team here. Schiff is just going with the gold buyouts. Singapore, I like that pick. Switzerland is a little questionable. Jim Cramer going with pretty much the American puppets. So, not American puppets, what am I saying? Vietnam's not an American puppet at all. They don't exactly like Americans there. At least from what I understand. I'm not sure. Leave a comment down below. But let's go to the next round here. All right. Next pick goes to Chamath. Next perk here. She's going with Nigeria. Okay, interesting. I may have a pick coming up which I'm thinking about taking that's similar. But all right, listen. You want to talk about long-term massive convexity trades, Nigeria is the bet. This is the biggest consumer market in Africa, 230 million people, over 60% under the age of 25, and natural resources coming out of every square inch. Everyone's ignoring Nigeria because of risk. Well, that's where the alpha lives, my friends. And name a market with more upside per dollar of GDP right now. You can't. It's a fintech gold mine, a mobile-first, crypto-wired, WhatsApp-native society. Yes, there's political noise, but name one country that isn't an algorithmic disaster in 2025. That's a fair point, Chamath. Fair point, Chamath. Nigeria's new leadership is actually trying fiscal reform, exchange rate unification, and they just removed fuel subsidies. It's messy, but it's a 10x economy waiting for capital. So again, a lot of the similar reasons to it's a young population with 60% under 25. Wow. Big labor force, 200 fintech startups. It's the largest economy in Africa, 230 million people. It has a lot of oil too. This was an interesting pick. I like that pick. Nigeria was pretty good. Inflation is 24%. Reforms are in progress, but 24% inflation. What are we talking about? Yeah, I don't know if I would have picked that though. 24% inflation is pretty high. So am I up next here? I am up next. Okay. So I got to be honest here. There are 3 picks that I'm considering right now, and one of which is just an insane pick that might get me some hate. One of which is a more stable pick, and then one of which is a very high upside pick. Now, my hypothesis is I do have another Southeast Asian place I want to go for, but I don't know if I want to just go full board into that area. I don't want to have all my eggs in one basket. So I might pick a little bit of a safer country that's been on an upswing recently. So you know what? Here we're going to do it. We're going to go with Poland. So this is a little bit of a hot pick. I believe this is the first European pick. Am I correct? No, Switzerland was the first European pick. Okay. Second European pick. So again, my rationale is that this is a fairly consistent growing economy here. We're seeing 3.2% GDP growth last year. Wages are also rising too. There's lots of investment flowing in. They had a little bit of a dip in 2023. I believe that was when all the Russia stuff was happening, but this economy has consistently been growing for quite a long time now. Did a whole video on it too. I'm very high on Poland's economy, not super high, but they got some good upside. So this is one of those safer bets. It's not like drafting the guy who's like in the NBA draft who's 7 feet tall, who has raw athleticism and, might be able to figure things out. He's not the Giannis of this draft. This is like picking, I don't know. This would be like picking, back in the day, something like a Jose Calderon for the Raptors. Just a guy who's going to come in, what he is. He does what he does. He just gets assists and he's an efficient shooter. And that's what he's going to be. And I think that's what Poland is. It's just an efficient, a decently growing economy in Europe. And who knows with some of the stuff going on with Eastern Europe right now, if things might change stability-wise. But my rationale is they're getting a lot of investment there. They're turning into a manufacturing powerhouse right there, as you can see here, after the China shift. Again, lots of defense spending, lots of industrialization. They're turning into a tech hub, which is what I learned about in my video. I like this pick. So lots of EU support too, pro-EU stance. I think it's a solid pick. So we're going to go next here with Team Schiff. Let's see who they pick there. I think that we're going to close this out after 4 rounds, actually, instead of 5. This is a longer video than I thought. So Schiff picks the UAE. While you're all hyped up on emerging tech hubs and ESG alphabet soup, I'm picking a country that literally sits on a lake of wealth and actually understands that money needs to be backed by something, preferably barrels of crude and a fortress of gold. The UAE isn't just an oil state anymore. It's a tax-free finance hub, a gold vault for global elites, and one of the only places on earth where you can be rich and not get taxed and not feel like you're being hunted by regulators in Patagonia vests. And get this, they're buying gold by the ton, stockpiling it while the West stockpiles debt. They built cities from sand and now they're turning it into a geopolitical neutral zone for trade between China, India, Russia, and the US and Europe. You want resilience, you want inflation immunity, you want low debt and high hard assets, you got the UAE. Boom. Okay. All in all, this wasn't even in my, on my list, to be honest. I don't know what their growth rate is or anything. I don't know what their business is outside of building Dubai with oil money. So they're very much, eggs are all in one basket with this country, with oil, in my opinion. But then again, I was actually thinking of setting up a company to get around some of the new tax laws coming, to tax and censorship laws in Canada coming. This is actually one of the things that I have been thinking about, setting up a company in Dubai. Well, obviously we know all the million freaking infrastructure projects they got going on there, so we understand that they have good infrastructure. Okay, so in fact, I might wrap this up after this round here, because this video is going quite long, but maybe I'll keep going. Maybe we'll just try to do one more round here. One more round after this. So Jim Cramer picks Bangladesh. This was not on my draft board either. Are you kidding me? Are you? I don't think people are talking enough about Bangladesh, and that's why I'm buying it. Listen, folks, this is Vietnam 2.0, but even cheaper, even hungry, even with 170 million people cranking out textiles, digital services, and GDP like it's an Olympic event. This isn't just a growth story, this is a momentum story. Garment manufacturing is off the charts. The country's exporting more shirts than you've worn in your entire life, and it's digitizing at the speed of TikTok trends. Remittances are up, FDI is up, youth is up, optimism is up. And guess what? Inflation's cooling, wages are stable, and this right here is the comeback kid of South Asia. Buy, buy, buy. Okay, this is an interesting pick here. This was not anywhere in my top 20. So, accounted for 80% of export earnings from textiles, second largest garment exporter in the world after China, supplies a lot of big brands. I actually didn't know that. So Bangladesh is a big supplier for like, for a bunch of countries, or a bunch of companies. Young country, massive movement for digital Bangladesh, so to get online. Export led. What it doesn't have a good GDP growth, does it? Inflation cooling. Inflation at 7%. What's its GDP growth? 6%. Oh, how did I miss that? That's a big country with a big GDP growth. Okay, last round here. Jim Cramer is back on the clock. Turkey. Oh, this was my last pick in the draft. Damn. Okay, Turkey. Yes, everyone else is running scared from Turkey, but that's exactly why I'm buying, because this is a turnaround play, people. Erdogan finally gave the central bank back to someone with a calculator. Interest rates are up, inflation's coming down, and the lira is stabilizing. Let's not forget Turkey is a strategic catnip. It's the bridge between Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. It's got a real military, real manufacturing base, and it's been quietly stockpiling gold like it's prepping for a fantasy league with Peter Schiff. You think the EU is going to be resilient without Turkey? You think NATO's not leaning on Ankara? This is a reform story and a location story and a revenge of the emerging market story. Bye, bye, bye. Yeah, this was on my list. I think Turkey was one of my last picks in my mock draft here. Again, they got a lot of things going for it, but the inflation was why I didn't pick Turkey higher. So the inflation is still insane. What is it at? Forecast to be 40% for 2024. It's probably still quite high. 40% is very, very high. You guys know that. I mean, look, when we experienced 7% inflation, we were like, what the hell is this? They got 40% over there. So, look, all in all, Turkey, I think, is a solid pick here. So who's next up in the draft? Team Schiff is back on the clock. Team Schiff, Norway. Okay, another European gold pick. If you're tired of circus clowns running central banks, may I suggest a sovereign wealth fund worth $1.6 trillion, because that's what Norway has, a literal mountain of invested capital backed by oil, sanity, and Viking-level fiscal prudence. Norway didn't blow their oil money on stadiums and yachts like certain countries. They saved it, invested it, managed it responsibly. Meanwhile, they run surpluses, they export energy, and they're sitting on one of the world's most stable currencies. Oh, and while everyone else is slashing environmental promises to burn more coal, Norway is already powered almost entirely by hydroelectricity. I don't want a country that might figure it out. I want a country that already has. Norway is the gold standard of modern economic governance, and I mean that literally. So right now, the Sovereign Wealth Fund is worth pretty much the GDP of Canada, which 300k per citizen of Norway is insane. Invested in 70 countries, 9,000 companies, largest SWF in the world, Sovereign Wealth Fund. Fiscal surplus of 9% of GDP. What? Wow, look at that. Wait a second here. So Norway government budget, recorded government budget surplus 13. Wow, look at this. Holy Jesus, Norway. I mean, I knew that especially a lot of the Scandinavian Nordic countries, they They definitely are more responsible with their spending compared to us out west here in Canada and in the United States. But man, consistent surpluses every single year. Wow, good for them. Yeah. So, wow, that's a pretty solid pick then. Now I'm up. So I have a very, very hot pick. And I have a pick that I am a big believer in because of their leadership and what's been going on the last few years. And so I'm going to go with them, and maybe I'll mention my the pick that I might have made, which maybe would have got me in trouble here. But I'm going to pick Greece. So Greece is my last pick in the draft here. Its public debt to GDP, it was 161%. It's coming down drastically year by year. One of the most fiscally responsible countries in the world as of this current second. Inflation's coming down. Their GDP growth has been climbing. It was 2.2%. I think it's at 2.6 to 2.7 last year. They have a big budget surplus in the last few years. It's going quite well in Greece. So, again, one of the most underrated post-crisis turnarounds. It went from a cautionary tale to the EU growth darling. Its stock market has just been booming since 2023. I know it's mentioning 2023, but since then, lots of tourism. A big thing. Lots of energy projects going on right now in Greece. An LNG hub. You got south of Crete. You got a potential big kind of energy corridor forming with Egypt and potentially Israel. Who knows with what's going on there. There's also a gas thing around Cyprus that might be happening. They have a lot of big projects that are happening. There's the big giant investment project going on in Athens, the Ellinikon project. I just generally, I'm very high on this country going forward. It's a small economy, but again, a big sign is that how many people are coming back to the country after leaving. You don't see remigration happen that often, a net remigration, a reverse brain drain happen to a country. It's happening here and in a pretty massive way. So, the last pick in the draft will go to Chamath. I swear, he better not. Egypt. All right. That was somewhere on my mock draft, but here's the thing nobody's talking about. Egypt is the sleeper. Everyone sees inflation, currency devaluation, IMF bailouts, and they run. But what do I see? I see a country with 110 million people, a strategic location connecting Africa, Europe, and Asia, $25 billion in Gulf capital flowing in overnight after their most recent reforms. The Suez Canal alone made them $10 billion last year. That's a passive income stream every empire in history has wanted. And now they're liberalizing their FX regime, floating the pound and getting a $35 billion UAE investment in Ras Al Hekma to build their version of Dubai 2.0. This is Chamath Capital's classic move. Get in when it's hated, hold until Goldman writes the why you should be bullish on Egypt slide deck. So pretty good overall pick here. Again, a lot of the similar reasons. The Suez Canal's been taking a hit after the Houthi stuff, the Israel-Palestine conflict. So the Suez might be rebounding in the next few years if the conflicts over there at least ease up a little bit. All in all, this is a very solid pick. They have a younger population than most of the other countries, eh? Wow. All in all, very solid pick. Now, here was the pick that I left out. I potentially was going to pick Russia. Mainly because, again, I'm not a big fan of Russia. I'm not a fan of Russia. It's just, if you think that the war is going to come to an end, and if the US wants to ease tensions with Russia, that will open up the economic corridor more than it currently is, and therefore their economy should grow if the war were to end. However, as of this current second, who knows when the war will end. This was the draft here. So Team Chamath, India, Brazil, Nigeria, Egypt. I pick Indonesia, Philippines, Poland, Greece. Schiff got Switzerland, Singapore, UAE, and Norway. Kramer picked Mexico, Vietnam, Bangladesh, Turkey. Interesting here. So yeah, Schiff went for all the gold countries, and gold has been so hot lately. Maybe these countries do very well, even though they are relatively small. Kramer picked a lot of, I would say, more developed nations. I shouldn't even say that. I don't even know what Kramer was kind of going with here, actually. Just maybe industry? Because you got manufacturing, and Turkey. Sorry, Turkey. For me, I was picking my first two were just China substitutes. And my last two were more stable, growing EU countries. Chamath might have won this, actually. Chamath has the highest risk, highest return, I think, here. But man, those are pretty solid picks. Man, we did not. I think Chamath's the winner here. I think that honestly, Chamath and then me, and I think this is probably a pretty good order for who won. I think I probably came in second here, actually. So anyways, that was the great economic draft. What do you guys think? Who won this? Let me know in the comments down below. See you guys.